That's coming up on Inside Edition.
They're massive. They're intimidating.
Millions are thrilled by these giant trucks bashing and smashing, but some of these souped-up monsters have raged out of control.
Oh my God! They were all sitting ducks. That's amazing more people didn't get killed, really.
Has a front row seat to a monster truck show turned into a view to a kill.
Just one question. You gotta go live.
The last days of her life were filled with fear, stalked by a man she knew would hurt her. She cried out for help, but police could do nothing.
The police can't do anything for you after you're dead, you know, after the person comes and kills you.
Now this New England town is in mourning for a woman who shouldn't have died.
Let's go.
Stand by.
Princess Di is thinking about walking away from her royal marriage, so the Queen of Pop offered her palace to hide out in.
I'm so desperate.
If Madonna and Diana became roomies, how long would it be before a new prince arrived?
Oh my God.
2, 1.
Welcome to Inside Edition. We're glad you joined us. I'm Nancy Glass. Bill O'Reilly is on assignment. A little later, a woman is stabbed to death in broad daylight, but the law could do nothing to save her. And the material girl and the girl who has everything. Will Madonna and Princess Di be roommates? But first, monster truck fans get a thrill by watching drivers take seemingly death-defying chances. But now it seems it's the fans who are risking death by going to these events. Tony Cox has the story.
If you want to know what monster trucks are all about, just listen to their names. Liquidator. Wrecker. Above and Beyond.
They smash cars. I want to see it go to pieces.
These high-powered, overgrown toys delight children and adults year-round. The fun comes from watching tons of souped-up steel and rubber defy gravity in their attempts to sail over monster piles of junked cars. Many races are over in just a few seconds, but whether the race is against the clock or 2x2, as far as the fans are concerned, the wilder, the better.
We don't want them to turn their trucks over. If they do, that's an added attraction for the fans.
Most people want to see it crash. I mean, yeah, when they tip over, it's exciting, big time. But not when it goes into the crowd.
On March 7th, Chip Slattery was part of the crowd which came to the Niagara Falls Convention Center to see a monster truck race. He remembers thinking, even before the race began, that the action was just too close for comfort.
When I was in my seat, I was up high enough that I didn't feel at risk. But when I was standing right where I was allowed to stand, I was real scared. It's too much. They're massive. They're intimidating.
As it turned out, one truck was far more than intimidating. It was deadly. Chip had his video camera with him that night, and this is what he and a horrified crowd witnessed. Steve Pilawski and his 10-year-old son, Jason, were also in the stands that night, near where the truck hit.
I looked over, and I saw the truck push 3 or 4 other people out of the way, and I did all I could to keep Jason from looking over and seeing what was going on.
This is what he would have seen. Steve blindly snapped this shot as he and Jason were desperately racing out of harm's way. The man is Lester Gilliam, who had just plucked a young child from certain death by the oncoming runaway truck. Moments later, the 82-year-old man was dead, run down by a monster truck. Miraculously, Gilliam was the only fatality, and there was only a handful of injuries, none of them serious.
Did it hit people?
Months later, Jason still has nightmares about it.
I keep on seeing it coming up, and then I get a scare and wake up.
Monster truck racing is a relatively new sport and isn't regulated by a sanctioning body. For now, only insurance companies seem to have the clout to impose safety standards, and then only on a client-by-client basis. For years, the Monster Truck Racing Association, or M.T.R.A., has been aggressively promoting safety in the sport. But membership by drivers and promoters is strictly voluntary, and the M.T.R.A. has no enforcement powers.
We do our best to try and educate and have these people belong to our organization, but you can only do so much.
George Carpenter says this was the first spectator fatality he's aware of out of thousands and thousands of monster truck races. And from what he knew of the event, all recommended safety precautions have been taken, right down to the presence of a switch that a person on the sidelines can press to cut off the ignition. In this case, the truck reportedly went wild after the driver was knocked unconscious, possibly when the truck hit the ground. What's not clear is why the person holding the kill switch didn't push the button, or if the system was working in the first place. In his position, Carpenter is careful not to point fingers, but he does acknowledge what Chip Slattery suspected.
I think that the situation there, with the way the racing was set up and the size of the building, was one that maybe full-blown racing shouldn't have been done in.
They were all sitting ducks. Absolutely. That's amazing more people didn't get killed, really.
If the Niagara Falls tragedy had been the first and last spectator death, that might be the end of this story and this issue. But 3 months later to the day, tragedy struck again. This time, the victim was a 6-year-old boy named Todd Abbott. It happened at an outdoor speedway in Galesburg, Michigan.
It was my assumption when I went out there that all those trucks had remote kill switches.
Lynn's assumption was wrong. Coincidentally, the driver at Galesburg lost control when, like the driver at Niagara Falls, he was knocked unconscious. Reportedly, the driver passed out after landing off his last set of cars. Suddenly, the truck veered radically, hit a parked car, and was launched toward the bleachers. Todd was standing in the aisle, hoping to get an autograph from his favorite driver. His father was taking pictures nearby.
And then he busted through the fence. I went to look for my kids, and they were lifting the truck off from Todd, and I found him there.
Reportedly, the truck was equipped with a kill switch, but it wasn't required in order to race that night, and the driver chose not to use it. Would it have made the difference between life and death for Todd Abbott? We'll never know for sure, but one person doesn't think so. He's the race promoter and speedway owner, Russ Cowper.
I'm not sure if I want to be the guy holding the switch either. What happens if that driver is 10 seconds from regaining control? He knows how to manipulate his truck, and a promoter who's never been in a monster truck before pushes a button and takes him out of the picture, and the truck still goes awry.
George Carpenter was not at Galesburg that day, but based on what's been reported to him, he sees things differently.
The problem is that the ignition interrupter system was designed specifically to be used in the case of a driver being rendered unconscious for any reason. That's exactly what happened to that driver. There was no ignition interrupter system. That truck was left to run wide open with no way of stopping it.
Harold Tuttle was among the 13 people injured that night. Though little Todd was the only fatality, Harold knows that there, but for the grace of God, it could have been him.
Seeing the kid get killed and all the people getting hurt, it was sort of scary. It wasn't sort of, it was scary. That kid didn't deserve to die.
Last month, another monster truck event was held at Galesburg Speedway. This time it was held under the watchful eyes of the Monster Truck Racing Association. This time, kill switches were required.
And the Monster Truck Racing Association says since the Galesburg crash, sales of kill...
That you'll enjoy this one. There are a few things you should know about monster trucks. Number 1, they look good. Number 2, they sound good. Number 3, they are extremely powerful. And number 4, they don't handle well at all with all 4 wheels off the ground. Watch the Chi-Town Hustler on this world record car jumping attempt. I told you you would like it. Want to see it again? Needless to say, the Chi-Town Hustler came up just a little bit short. And we're short on time. Thank you for joining us.
It's your national event. This was
overflow with rage.
They're awesome. They're just awesome. They're so much fun. They're so loud. There's so much power. There's no other word for it. It's just awesome. It's amazing.
A monster truck is an overgrown pickup truck in every aspect. The tires, the build, the motor, everything. Faster, stronger, everything.
Part of the fun of it is eventually, you know, you might catch one tipping over. You might catch one with a wheel breaking off or something like that. I believe that's part of the fun of it.
Everybody wants to see a crash or a rollover or something like that. It's exciting.
In upstate New York, hundreds of people pack into a small arena. The second-to-last race has begun. The outcome will shock everyone.
I was sitting 15 rows up, leaning against the railing where the monster truck hit.
When he hit the ground and the bead cracked on the right rear tire, the bead cracked, which softened the tire, and it shot it to the left. That's the only reason the truck went to the left. That would have went straight. You know, he was knocked out, the driver.
You hear people screaming and people shouting.
It was chaos. Everybody was kind of running around. They didn't want anyone to go over there. It looked like 15 people were killed. It really did, because there was a crowd of people, a circle of people, of a good 10, 15 people, right where the truck was going.
I was following it, and I'm watching the truck come closer and closer and closer, and all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, something's wrong. So I grabbed the camera, and I pulled it off to the side, and I snapped the picture, and at that moment, that's when the truck hit.
It was the following day we heard about Lester Gilliam saving the child's life. I couldn't believe it. I ran that through my head probably for 3 or 4 days, that somebody would think about a stranger's life before their own. I don't know if I would do that. I mean, he's a hero. There's no greater sacrifice in your life, right?
What you see is you see a monster truck hitting the abutment, and you see a man, a brave man, trying to get out of the way, because moments before that he had just pushed a 10-year-old boy out of the way. And basically what you see is the last picture of this man before the end of his life.
Lester Gilliam's 2 sons were standing right next to their dad as the monster truck slammed into the stands.
I just remember a loud, abnormal loud noise, the noise getting louder and louder, louder than what it should be. Looking up and seeing the truck right in front of me, then getting hit.
As he starts coming towards you, you think, you know, he's going to stop. And then you realize he's not going to stop.
James Fiegel was 10 years old when Lester Gilliam saved his life. Since then, he's been haunted that a brave man died so that he could live. Today, he's going to meet the Gilliam boys for the first time.
James, yeah. Always nice to meet you. Hey, Gilliam?
How you doing, Jimmy? How you been, Mike?
Very good.
And this is Dan.
How you doing? Glad to see you.
I'm sorry that you guys lost your dad. And that I wish he was here today alive, because I would like to thank him personally for saving my life.
My father's actions are, you know, what he did, then it's something we would have expected of him. He was that type of person.
He's a real hero for me, and that I'm gonna look up to that day until I die too.
Thank you.
There's no thanks in the world that I can tell these people. Nothing's gonna replace them. I think of these people as my family now. They're considered my family for what that guy did.
At the end, going out the way he did, it helps. He didn't give his life in vain. He helped somebody else.
Lester Gilliam, a tragic hero, another face in the crowd. But what is a crowd? A teeming mass of